Unit 3, Lesson 2, Combining Integers. Think of combining integers as playing a game. So think about playing a board game where 0 is the starting point. When you move to the right, you're moving in the positive direction, and when you move to the left, you're moving in the negative direction. Notice I used green for positive and red for negative. Sometimes we think about banking. When we think about banking, we think about losing money, or we might say we're in the red. That usually means that we lost money or we owe money. So usually negative numbers would be portrayed as red. So let's think about playing this game, and we're going to move along this number line. Remember, we're always starting at 0 because that is our neutral home. All right, if you roll a 4, so otherwise known as positive 4, you just jump 4 spaces in the positive direction. So we start at 0, we jump to 1, 2, 3, 4, and that is where we land at 4. Okay, remember when you are jumping, you're starting at 0. Your first jump is when you jump on the 1. So when you start at 0, after you land on the 1, that counts as one jump. If you roll a negative 5, you just jump 5 spaces in the negative direction. So we're starting on 0. We're moving 5 places in the negative direction. So we end up at negative 5. Right? So the sign in front of the number, in this case, the negative 5, that negative is really just telling you which direction to go in. So if we look at negative 5, it really means left 5. It is important to remember that the sign in front of the number tells you which direction to travel in. If there is no sign in front or to the left of a number, the number is always positive. So let's look at the examples below. Here we have a positive 6 because there's no sign in front of the number. So on the number line, we would move to the right 6. Here we have a negative 6, or to the left 2, negative 10, to the left 10, and a positive 3 to the right 3. Let's identify these integers in the expression as positive or negative. So I'm going to highlight these plus symbols. The plus symbols really mean followed by. So if we're thinking of this board game, okay, we're going to move in the positive direction 9, followed by another move in the negative direction 2, followed by a move in the positive direction 3, followed by a move in the negative direction 7. Sometimes you may have to make more than one move. So we're going to look at this math sentence. It's also known as an equation because it has an equal sign. Now, I know that you all know what 3 plus 1 is. I'm going to start with this basic number to remind you of what you probably did back in first grade when you had a little number line on your desk when you were learning how to add. So we're going to separate this 3 plus 1 into a positive 3 followed by a positive 1. In order to start this, you need to start from 0 and travel 3 spaces in the positive direction, followed by one more place and then positive direction. All right, so let's try this. We're going to start at 0. Our first move is positive 3, which means we go to the right 3 places. So we end up at positive 3. Okay, now we're going to start at positive 3, and our next move is in the positive direction, which is to the right, one more. So I started at 3 where I left off, and I went in the positive direction one more, and we ended up on positive 4. So that is what your answer is. Let's try another one. Now we have 2 moves, both in the negative direction, right? So we're going to go in the negative direction 3, followed by another move in the negative direction 4. So let's move in the negative direction 3, and we end up on negative 3. Now we're going to start at -3 and continue going in the negative direction 4 more. And we end up at -7. Here's our last example. We have still 2 moves. We're going to move in the positive direction 2, followed by a move in the negative direction 5. So start at 0, right 2. Now from there, we have to go in the negative direction 5. So now we're turning around, right? If we were playing a game, we may consider this going backwards, right? So we're going back 5. Right? So notice we didn't go back to -5. We jumped from 2 to -3, right? If you had a piece of paper, you may jump using loops, right? Like from 2, you might make one show like a loop as you jump to 1, and then another loop as you jump to 0, and we land at -3. So our answer here is -3. Okay, so I want you to use your finger and see where you end up, okay? If you start at 0, first you're going in the negative direction 3, and then in the negative direction 1. Where do you end up? Pause this video and try it. You should end up at -4. Let's try another one. You start at 0, negative direction 4, positive direction 7. And you should end up at +3. And lastly, try this one. So here you should have gotten 0 because you started at 0, you went in the positive direction 5, and then you went back in the negative direction 5, and you ended up back where you started at 0. When you combine opposites, they always equal 0. So -10 plus 10 is 0, 5 followed by a -5 is 0, 4 followed by a -4 is 0. Okay, think of it, we can think of it in many ways, right? First, we can think about it as we're digging a hole that's 10 inches deep, and then we're filling in that hole, and we end up back on the ground level at 0. If we think of money, let's look at 5. We earn $5, and then we spend $5, so we're back at 0. So anytime you have two opposites, like a +5 and a -5, and you combine them, you'll always end up at 0.